63 days to go. That's 9 weeks to Election Day in America. And as is always the case after Labor Day, the sprint is on. A week today will come the first presidential debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. Absentee ballots will be mailed out in North Carolina on Friday. Yes, Friday. Early voting starts in Pennsylvania in 2 weeks' time. And today, the vice president is out with a new ad on the economy.
We all know costs are too high. But while corporations are gouging families, Trump is focused on giving them tax cuts. But Kamala Harris is focused on you.
Building up the middle class will be a defining goal of my presidency.
She'll make groceries more affordable by cracking down on price gouging. And she'll cut housing costs by taking on corporate speculators. Middle-class families build America. We need a leader who has their back.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Yeah, in the national polling, Kamala is in the lead, but it's not about national mood. It's the polling in the 6 or 7 swing states that really counts. That is what will decide this. And in those states, well, it's within the margin of error. No clear leader. The key issue in any election in the final few weeks is momentum, which for now does appear to be with Harris. The clearest evidence of that, the Gallup poll out last week, measuring the change in electoral enthusiasm among Democrats and Republicans. Democrats have a 14-point edge on Republicans among those who are likely to lean their way. That's a major shift from polling in March. Biden, then the candidate, of course. Republicans back in March had a 4-point lead. You can talk about policy, Wills. You can talk about the threat on the other side that each would perceive. But if you have people on your team who are enthusiastic, who want to vote, that really does make a difference, doesn't it?
I mean, the change has been staggering since Biden was on the ticket. There was a USA Today Suffolk poll out today, which shows enthusiasm has gained by almost 20 points among some Democrats. The momentum is really behind Kamala at the moment. The Trump campaign have been hoping it was just a honeymoon period after the DNC, and it seems to be going on. And it shows how pivotal next week's debate is going to be, because the tide is with Kamala, the enthusiasm is with Kamala. Democrats were they sensed they were stuck in the mud with Biden as the candidate. They didn't see a future, and now they do. And, Trump, again, is something some would say of in the past. And so this enthusiasm could keep building, and Trump has got to find a way to stop it. And next week in the debate could be a key factor in that. Yeah, it really could. In the ad, Kezia, obviously the Democrats are trying to flip the script on the cost of living, trying to blame it on corporate entities, on price gouging. It's still really thin on detail and on policy, although I think she is going to New Hampshire tomorrow to talk about some of the policy. Do you see similarities, actually, with where Keir Starmer was some months ago? I was talking about it last week as carrying the Ming vase. Can the enthusiasm take her all the way to the line without any policy?
I think it can, actually, and I think Keir Starmer had substantially more policies than Kamala Harris might have at this moment in a particular election race. And that's not to say that the Labour manifesto was full with a very clear plan of absolutely everything they're going to do over the next 5 years. A lot of it is about feeling, how the country feels and how the leaders of the respective
parties... But don't you need a mandate? Don't you need
that.
A mandate if you're going to govern? Don't you set out things so that you can get things across the line when the going gets tough?
Oh, of course you do, but Kamala Harris obviously is vice president to Joe Biden, and carries a lot of that economic record and his mandate with her. What she's topped that up with, however, is 2 brand new issues that you never really heard Biden talk that much about. One is the cost of food, and the other is the cost of housing. That's her slant, so to speak, for the American electorate. I understand you. I know how hard it is to make ends meet. I'm going to help you with that. Yeah, I think that's a major development.
President Biden's been on stage with the vice president over the weekend. He was in Pittsburgh yesterday for Labor Day. He'll be in Wisconsin Thursday, Michigan on Friday. They have to be careful how they use him. He's been talking at the White House this afternoon. Have a listen.
The bottom line is thousands of cities and towns all across America are seeing the great American comeback story, whether they're in red states or blue. All is part of what we're calling an Invest in America agenda. It's about seeking my commitment, speaking to the commitment I made as president, to be president for all Americans, whether you voted for me or not, whether you're in a red state or a blue state. And it's what's being highlighted. We're doing that today to highlight and show we're just getting started.
Yeah, I can see why the enthusiasm suddenly jumped on Democrat side, Wills, just watching that. Do they have to be a bit careful how they're using? Because Kezia's talked about this enthusiasm that can sustain, but he has real pull factor in Pennsylvania, the boy from Scranton, but also he is deeply unpopular still in some of the polling.
He is, and there's also the factor that a lot of people across the country are tying the economic problems they face to Biden. You know, Bidenomics has been deemed a failure by many other people. And we talk about food prices. People are still very angry with how high the price of food is. People are still angry with gas prices. Inflation, very high under the Biden administration. And so Harris, looking forward, you might see in some of those ads a fleeting reference to Joe Biden. But as you said, places like Pennsylvania, Scranton, the blue wall, where the working class are really a big factor in the Democratic vote, then you might see him. But as time goes on, Kamala's got to forge her own identity. And that's got to come with, as we talk about, more policies, because at the moment they sound very similar to what the Biden administration was trying to combat and when they were in office. And she was the vice president. And that's what a lot of Democrats are trying to get around at the moment, especially.
Yeah, well, that level of enthusiasm that we've talked about can be seen in the campaign funding the vice president's raised since she became the nominee 6 weeks ago, over $500 million. That's staggering. It's twice as much as the Trump campaign has raised since January. But Donald Trump, never short of an idea on how to close the gap. We can never forget the never surrender gold sneakers, which sold in hours. They sold out at $400 a pop. Last week, he was promoting a new set of digital Trump trading cards, $1,500 for a set, which he said would come with a piece of his suit from the debate with Joe Biden. And now we have this.
New book is coming out. It's called Save America. I think you're going to love it. Tremendous pictures, tremendous history. And go out and get it. You're going to be very happy.
A new book for your coffee table, which has a photo on the front cover of him surrounded by his Secret Service agents escaping that assassination attempt last month, full of photos from his first term in office, his meetings with foreign leaders. A must-have, says the former president, for all those interested in US history. And in typical Trump fashion, it also includes some rather biting commentary on some of his opponents. There's a picture apparently of, there it is, of Liz Cheney, who voted to impeach him after the January 6th riots, with a caption that reads, Liz Cheney would often come to the White House asking for baskets of goodies, to which I said no. There is also a warning to the Meta boss, Mark Zuckerberg, that he will spend the rest of his life in prison if he does anything illegal to influence the election. On shelves now, yours, Kezia, for $94.12.
Or I think $500 if I'm wanting to sign it, right? What a bargain.
I'll throw in a piece of his suit. How about that?
Yeah, look, he's always had his own way of raising campaign funds, and quite clearly he needs some boost to the coffers at the moment, given the figures that you've outlined for Kamala Harris. More than money, though, I would say what he needs now is a strategy. I think one of the things he'll need to determine between now and the debate next week is what his actual attack lines on Kamala Harris are. We've had 57 varieties of that up until this point. He needs to pick one and stick to it.
Yeah, it's a serious point, that, Wills. He is struggling to define how he's going to approach Kamala Harris, notably in the debate. I mean, he's saying she's not a good debater. I never think that's a good strategy because you set a very low bar for your opponent.
Well, you've got to remember about 9 weeks ago, the bar was set very low for Joe Biden and Donald Trump in that debate, and Biden went below that bar. So
yeah,
you never know. Debates are so unpredictable. But you're right. Trump hasn't really settled on the attack. He's calling her Comrade Kamala based on what he said, communist price gouging to bring down the price of food. And I mean, he even posted a picture of her in a communist uniform the other day. Elon Musk did. And yeah, they're still trying to strategize how they get to her. And there's a lot of personal attacks at the moment. There have been some suggestions that he should move and try and discuss her lack of policy. And I think that will come. I think we still, 9 weeks is a short amount of time, but it is also a very long amount of time where there's a lot that's going to happen. So as Kamala's policies start to come out, then Trump should really poke those, try and poke holes in those, because there's a lot of name calling at the moment, which we know from past elections, and he needs to really change his focus.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, all roads to the White House, Kezia, lead through the blue wall states and principally the three blue states, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania and Michigan. I was reading today, only once since 1980 have they not picked the president. Only once have they not picked the governor and gone the same way. They always go the same way and have done since 1980. It's quite incredible. So although she's opening up pathways through Nevada, Arizona, the easiest way is through Pennsylvania. And it is those three states they're going to see the bulk of the campaigning.
It is, and that's why I think momentum does matter, because what it will lead to is turnout, and it's Democrats that are more likely to stay at home, given everything we've known over the past few months about attitudes towards Joe Biden. If she can rally that base, if she can keep that momentum high, then that could be enough to carry her through to victory in those three states and therefore take her to the president.
And just on that point, Wills, just before we go to the break, do you still see, you talk to a lot of people out there, do you still see her as the underdog?
The tough one. No, not now, because she still has a sense of incumbency of her. She is the vice president, and we talked about that enthusiasm earlier. You know, she may have the aura of the underdog because people are getting excited. She's only been in the race a few weeks, but she's got to be encroaching on the favorite. And so it depends what definition you have of underdog. You have that character and you have that sense of being newly installed into the race, but in terms of where we look at polls and if we look at where the trajectory of the race is going, she definitely isn't an underdog. Sorry.